Brought to you by Telehelping, a virtual assistant staffing company for professionals.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cody Hall. I am the host of The Faces, Entrepreneurs Are People Too, and also the founding CEO of Telehelping, a virtual staffing organization, and the here and sponsor of my podcast. So thank you for Telehelping for putting the bill so I can sit here and talk to great people like Uziel. Good morning. How are you, man?
Good. Thanks for having me, Cody. How are you?
I'm great. It's a little cloudy this morning as we're gearing up for some rain here in NorCal, as you are in the greater LA area as well.
Yeah, I love your background. It's so beautiful, like the whole nature and everything. Like beautiful.
You're the last podcast I'll have here for a while, so I'm heading to Vegas. I'm a roamer, so I'm lucky to have some rental properties that I jump in and out of, and it happened to be that Napa recently, in the past year, made Airbnbs illegal, which made my place vacant, right? So I appreciate them, but also I'm heading back to Vegas, which is technically my home now, when I'm not in Mexico, right? And so I'm excited to get back to Vegas, see how things are cooking down there. And so this is the last time I'll have this pretty background for a while. I'll be in an office after this. Uziel, the first thing I generally have people do is, tell us who we're talking with here today. Like, who are you?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, first of all. So my name is Uziel Gomez. I am the founder of Primeros Financial. I actually launched coming up at about a year now. Primeros Financial is a financial planning firm dedicated to empowering first-generation wealth builders. I'm a first-gen myself. I'm a Primero. I'm sure you know Primeros is for first. So I'm a first everything, right? I'm a first-gen college graduate, first to be in a professional setting, first to be traveling the world in my household. So, I really wanted to inspire and give back to someone like me. So that's really the professional side. I'm also a certified financial planner. I also love giving back to the community. So currently I'm serving on the board of directors for the Financial Planning Association of Los Angeles chapter as the director of Next Gen, the director of DEI, and the president-elect as well. Honestly, I'm very passionate and I love finance. So that's really consumes a lot of my time in a really good and healthy way. So there's not a lot of time for other hobbies, but besides that, I'm a big fan of boxing. I've been watching boxing my entire life. I have been training for a while, but with, starting to practice, it's kind of hard to find the time now. I've also been picking up new hobbies like painting. And then I just love trying out new stuff, to be quite honest. So that's really who I am.
Uziel, great. I appreciate you sharing that. And so, I was going to ask you, you said Primero. I was like, oh, okay, where did I thought maybe first, but truly it's the first of first, right?
Exactly.
And that's great. And so, in terms of heritage and origin, where is your family originally from? So you're Primero, pero antes. What was before? What was going on before?
Yeah, so both of my parents are from a small town in Morelos in Mexico, which is the state south of Mexico City. They're from Huacalco, a very small town. It's gotten more popular, and they're known for like the Mexican Revolution. That's where General Emiliano Zapata, if you know his story, that's where he was born and raised. So that's where my parents are from, and they migrated to the U.S. many years ago.
That's great. My wife is from a small town a couple hours south of Guadalajara. And most of the year I live in Jalisco. So I'm in Jalisco most of the year, just south of Guadalajara as well. And so I really do love Mexico. But you live in greater LA now, which I've also lived in for numerous years. You said you pretty much you've been on the same block forever, right? You've been
Yeah, we lived in a small apartment for the first 17 years of my life, and then we moved walking distance 5 minutes down the same block. So Canoga Park is the neighborhood. We've just been on the same block my entire life.
Great. Well, you say you have a passion for finance, right? Where did that spur from? When were you thinking that this is what I want to do with my life? It's you couldn't have always liked math. right? You couldn't have always liked finance, but I know I did, and I hated it, but now it's my life. But where did that spur from you? It sounded like something from an origin.
Well, I think I've always loved math, to be quite
Right.
honest. Like I've always
Okay.
loved math. I've had a passion for that as well. But I would say like I always had that love for finance without really knowing it. So I grew up low income, right? So my parents, we always struggled to get by, but we always managed to get by, thank God. But they were really good with managing their finances, but it never went beyond saving for a rainy day. So they didn't save for things like retirement. They didn't have the resources or the guidance or the people to help them navigate beyond that survival mode, because everyone in our neighborhood was also on survival mode. So I always saw like the techniques that my mom implemented in our household, and I was a very observant kid. So like I knew our situation, I knew what was going on. And then growing up, there was a point where my friends started informing me and like teaching me about credit, the importance of credit, and how to like navigate the system. But it never went beyond just the very basics. So I developed an obsession with like the credit system and how to like really increase my credit score. And I came across an article that said how an 18-year-old kid had like a perfect 800 score at the age of 18 as soon as he turned 18. And it was because his parents added him as an authorized user, which added all of their credit history onto their child's history. So, he had the perfect 800 score by that age. So then I started asking people around like, hey, can you do this for me? And, there was very limited people that had good credit score, in my immediate circle, just because they didn't really know how to navigate the financial system.
Mm-hmm.
And the very few people that I did ask that had a good credit score, they're like, no, that doesn't sound right. Like, why should I add you, right? And I was just trying to get good credit, right? Like I knew I had to build good credit. So that's where like really my passion started. And like I just started researching, I started doing various things. And then I started working at a bank as a bank teller for some time. And then I worked in a very unique location where the population was like, we were in a location where there's like Sherman Oaks on one side. So, you had a lot of higher income folks coming in, and we were right in the middle of Van Nuys as well, which is very low income folks as well. So we had like the best of both worlds. And I realized that a lot of those folks, whether they were low income, higher income, there was a discrepancy between what they knew in terms of financial literacy. But of course, the people with higher income had the resources to be able to survive and, pay their rent. And I saw like a lot of the need within my community. So I asked, how can I give back to my community? How can I also help my family prosper? But not only my family, how can I help my community prosper and give back? So really, I feel like that's really my passion, how it grew. And I think it's my calling, to be quite honest.
That's, Uziel, that's great. You hit on something there, that quantity does not equal competency, right? I'm the complete opposite. I don't think too high of credit because I am, cash blessed, as I would say, right? And I've accumulated it over the course of my life, and I hold on to it fiercely. I save. If I make $1, I'll save $3. And so, that's just how I've always been. That's how my grandmother raised me. I grew up similar to you, very limited on resources. And by limited, I mean we didn't have any. So it's just generally what it meant. And my grandmother raising me, my brothers, was a Great Depression era woman, and so she could save a penny and get $1 out of it. And so I grew up, and I used to. Once you get to a certain level, you have to start educating yourself on finance as an adult. It should be required. I just had a conversation with my brother recently over the lack of education that we receive on finance. Something that there's something everyone here is going to do at one point in their life. They're going to pay taxes, they're going to pay bills, and ideally they're going to get paid from a job. I don't understand why the system doesn't teach us that. And if I'm being real, I kind of do understand why the system doesn't teach us that, because it makes the world go round.
Exactly.
You need people borrowing, you need people not paying it back, right?
Yeah.
you need people with a lot that don't know how to manage it. You need people with a little who don't know how to manage it. Like there's a role that everyone has to play in this capitalistic system that's been built.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sad reality. But so your clients, are you? I know you're passionate about what you do, and I understand your background. Has that impacted who you help, who you work with?
Yeah, so I mean, when I was figuring out who I could target, because I want to help out people like my parents, I want to help out people like my siblings, but to be quite honest, to make my practice sustainable, I also have to charge a reasonable rate.
Of course.
And I realized, well, my story is not unique because I'm my parents' retirement plan. So my story is not unique. There's so many people like me out there who are also helping out their siblings, or helping out their parents, are helping out the future generation by building that wealth. So I said, how could I really impact many lives by impacting one indirectly? So that's why I went after the first gen, because I know people like me, a lot of my clients are supporting not just themselves, but they're supporting those around them and bringing back what the knowledge and everything that I'm teaching them within their immediate circle. So that's how I know hopefully I'm making an impact beyond just my clients. But yeah, for the most part, they're either first or second generation wealth builders, navigating a whole new system that their parents really couldn't teach them. So everything I recommend, or even the conversations I have with my clients, are financial literacy based, and just trying to empower them to understand what they have and gain control of their finances.
Correct. And I think that's the biggest thing. Whether you have $1 or $100 million, you have to know how to leverage it, right? It's all a lever. Like everything is a lever when it comes to money. Some people just have bigger levers, and
Yeah,
so and it helps them move things. But if you don't know how to manage what you have, you'll never understand how to manage what you could have.
exactly.
And I think that's one thing that I've seen through people I've known who've come up in the world and have gone from being in the trailer parks and the ghettos, and then they come up and then they have all this money, they have no idea what to do with it, and they just
Yeah.
spend it. And I know I've seen people that I know personally get millions of dollars and squander millions of dollars, and
Yeah.
it's just because they treat that $1 million like they treated the $1,000 they had.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest component that I've also learned myself, is not just the generational wealth that you're passing, but it's also the generational knowledge that has to come along with that to make that generational wealth last a long, lifetimes across your family.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's the big thing as well. Like, um, one of my key goals in life is to break the trend with my family, which is generally just being, poor white people, right? And that's, hey, listen, they've made an effort out of it, right? And there's been people who've come up in their time, but the wealth stopped with them, right? They lived a rich life. However, their kids either received the money and got millions of dollars, spent it all, right? I'm speaking to my cousins here, right? There's millions of dollars from their past mother, and it was just wasted. What could have been the start of a beautiful foundation for
Yeah.
their life as 20-something-year-old people ended up being a brisk win, an exciting moment that passed really quickly.
Yeah.
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 So,
Very, very fortunate.
they really are, and I think that's one thing that I would say that you're working on is helping people not only change their direction, but change the direction of their lineage.
Yeah.
You said it a few times. You said build wealth builders, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we speak to a lot of CFAs on my podcast, and telehelping works with a lot of CFAs for remote staffing. And you're the first person I've heard say wealth builder. Everyone's at wealth management. So talk to me about why that vernacular.
I think a lot of people are tapping into the people that already have that wealth, because it's easier to sustain a business like that. You could charge a higher fee, and that's a really good business model as well. But I want to be able to build that wealth and be part of that journey where people are either graduating college or starting from the very beginning from scratch. So I do a lot of what I call foundational planning, where it's really like setting up their plan and telling them, okay, now you're the first person in your family to earn this much money. What are you going to do with the excess cash? Let's set up everything that you need to do in order to succeed. So my fees are really affordable because I'm meeting people where they're at. But that's really where I want to make a difference, because I think about myself, like my situation. If I wasn't in the financial planning industry, how much money could I be potentially making, and how much could I afford to hire a financial planner? So that's really how I came up with my fee model, so that I wouldn't be so much of a burden and make financial planning accessible to people like me that I know are not just going to make a difference in their lives, but also in the lives of those people around them.
Yeah, and that's a great way to look at it in terms of foundational. I would definitely say I did not do it correctly. If I were to look back on how I approached the onset of my wealth management, I made a lot of money at one point in the beginning, and you're like, oh, great. And you had money in your savings account, and like maybe you invested a little bit, but I wasn't doing anything with it, right? I definitely wasn't. I could have already have invested into the relationship of a financial manager or wealth builder. But I didn't, because I just always thought like, oh, well, I don't have a whole lot. I think I can manage my own wealth, right?
Yeah.
What's a couple $100,000, right? In the grand scheme of things. And it wasn't until I had a successful exit from a company that I sold where I was like, what am I going to do with all this, right? And like, now I need somebody.
Yeah.
And, and in that process of getting someone, I learned that I could have been doing this the entire time, right? Like there are so many things I could have been doing a decade earlier, right? Now I'm just like, oh, I didn't wait till it was too late, but I definitely waited till later, where I could have been an early adapter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot of the misconceptions, where people think that you need a lot of money to start investing. It's like, you can start investing with $5, right? Like, you got to start somewhere, which is the important part.
Yeah. Well, people always like, talk about investor. I day trade, and, I started my day trading account with $10,000, right? And it's been a numerous years since I've day traded, and then it's 100% greater than that now in the account, but it's also taken a long time to get there, right? I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn this to 20 grand. I was like, all right, great. I'm not going to lose this money, right? I'm like, I'm gonna hold on to it. I'm like, I'm gonna get it 30, and then I'm like 40, and I just like kept setting small goals where I was just inching there. Some days it was dollars a day, some days it was thousands a day, and like it just depended. I was but I was always like trending like the NASDAQ. I was just little up and like this. And one of my friends was the opposite direction. He was just like, I want rapid growth. I want it now. And, and he would huge trades and then huge losses and huge trades. And I was like, I can't swing like that. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like a nice neutral strategy.
Definitely requires a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of patience, because you've been speaking a lot to some folks who maybe who aren't ultra net worth or large net worth, right? I imagine you have to have the conversation of patience, because when you start off with small amount of money, you're going to also have small amount of gains, and you're really looking into the future. We're looking like, hey, we're starting now because we have a lot of runway. Right? Is that a conversation you're having to have with people around patience?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of like having that conversation of like, let's set it and forget it. Like, this money is there, it exists, but we're not going to look at it, because a lot of my clients are anywhere between like 21 to 35. So when they're on the younger side, is like, you're not going to retire hopefully until another 40, 50 years, right? So it's having the discipline. I tell them, is like, doing what you could do to control everything, controlling everything that's within your control, and just having the discipline of saving for your future self. Of the analogy I use a lot, because my clients are younger, it's harder to think about retirement. I always think, well, is the older person of you, are you going to want to travel? Are you going to want to be able to do the things that you enjoy doing now? Are you going to want to be able to do that in the future? So, let's save for those future trips, let's save for your future self. But yeah, definitely a lot of patience and a lot of like that, that goes into our conversation when it comes to investing.
No, I mean, the first thing I did when I had my first large exit was, well, medium exit, large exit, however you want to look at it, big. I took a little bit of money out, right? Because, I needed cash. I wanted to have some cash, right? And then I put all my money into a trust, and I have a trustee, and then my wealth managers, they worry about that. And so it takes care of itself. I can't touch it by design, right? It is there. Like I have to make a compelling reason for me to touch the money I've been able to accumulate, and it's designed that way because I don't want to be able to like, oh yeah, I really do need that 500,000 so I can go buy a Porsche that I really want, and because I have to have this Porsche, right? Like that's like, no, it's like I have to be at risk of like losing my home, right? Or depleted savings or something in order for me to touch it, because I have it in place for years down the road. I don't want the money now. I don't want to need the money now. And so which is why I still work to this day, right? I could hang out on a beach in Mexico, right? Living a conservative life for the rest of the existence, but I like working and I want to make enough to carry myself. And I think that's the hard thing sometimes is you have it, set and forget's nice, but it's there, right?
Yeah.
But having it out of reach is super important.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you brought that up, because like sometimes you have to set up the proper guardrails for your own self, right? Like knowing, I don't want to have access to this money at all.
Correct.
And with first generation wealth builders, there's so many different techniques that you have to implement, because there are, like you mentioned, there you can make the case that like you could go out and spend it, like you mentioned with your cousins. It was the case,
Correct.
right? So you have to create that proper guardrails for yourself.
Yeah, I had my cousins, they seem to have had it all set up. They had trustees and everything. Only issue is the trustee was a family member, and family member was impartial to the people, and so they're like, oh yeah, okay, you can have this, you can have that, you can have this, and they blew through it. It was gone. And I've seen it time and time again. I know a guy who inherited a handful of millions, right? And put his cousin in charge of the money. A person with no financial background whatsoever, right? Similar background as hell. Like, why? I mean, you're better off managing your own money, right? Just putting someone else that's not you in charge of your money. And then you're paying them to manage your money. And so, I think sometimes when it comes to money, I've learned you can't have the best intentions with who you choose. You have to choose someone that ultimately is credible and that you can trust them. And I find that like why we want to trust family, it's not family.
Yeah.
Right. It not family if they're not a person who is qualified like yourself, right? Like if I had a wealth management cousin and I was like, okay, I could put some money for you to manage, versus like, oh, hey, cousin, right? who has no background in anything. Right. So I think that we see that oftentimes, and it just gets back to the education around money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when you're not managing, the money, and you're not starting your business, how do you spend your free time? Like, you say you had some hobbies, some boxing, or do you get out to the boxing gym?
Yeah, it's in hindsight, it's been a while. Since I launched a year, it's just been like, just
Busy,
the grind, busy. Yeah. Before that, I was doing a lot of boxing classes, sparring. There's a gym down the street in Reseda. Shout out to New Era Boxing. I joined them about a year ago as well. So yeah, I love boxing. I love watching it, and just doing it as a sport as well. That's what I've been doing lately. We've also been doing like the sip and paint classes as well. I'm not really good at painting. Like that, I'm not really creative on that side. I feel like I'm creative within the planning realm. But it's really a good distraction to like get my mind off of, work and, practice, because that becomes, it just becomes everything you think about. So it's definitely a good distraction. And then I really love eating and like trying new food. So, going out with friends and doing that as well.
I mean, you're in the best place for it, though. LA is a great spot for food. It's likewise, so is Vegas and like San Francisco, like great big cities with lots of diversity. I've always done fighting as well. I did it in the Marine Corps and I did boxing afterwards. There's just something every now and then I need to be punched in the face, and
Yeah.
so it's just a great reset for me. And, when I'm down in Mexico, I go to a gym down there that I box at, and most of the people in that gym are, they are very serious about it. They go,
Yeah.
I'm going into the afternoon. They're going into their 2 a day, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, like
Yeah.
I'm on the back end of what they've already been doing all day. But it's good fun for them because most of them I'll spar with them because I'm a unique, happenstance at their gym because I have about 2 feet on all of them. And so, the Mexican male, averages somewhere around 5'5" to maybe 5'9". Like that's generally a good average. And so me at a staggering 6'2", right, with orangutan arms, right, they're like, I gotta box this guy.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, Guedo, like, get over here. And
Yeah.
so I do the boxing with them, and that's good fun. But they they'll light me up, and I find it as a very humbling experience
It
to
is.
get in there with folks, and then I'll go watch them at their fight nights and stuff like that, and it's a good time to do that. But the best part is it's all Spanish too, so for me, I'm in a completely different world. I don't know as much about them as boxing, and I don't understand everything that's coming out of their mouth as we're fighting, but it's a good time. It's a whole
Yeah.
different experience.
Oh, yeah. It is. It's good.
No. Well, as you continue to grow your practice, what are some of the goals that you're looking forward to in this coming year? So you've done it for a year and you're like, all right, great. I grinded for this year. Here's where I'm heading for.
What I've realized that a lot of my clients that I am working with, it's just going to be, for a very limited amount of time. Like traditional wealth management is like they want their clients for forever, right? Like they want to be in their corner. For me, it's really just a lot of foundational planning where it's like, okay, we're going to set you up with all of the accounts. We're going to set you up to automate everything and start investing, start contributing your retirement accounts. And then, they probably won't need me in a year or a year and a half. So what I'm realizing is like changing my business model to like do more project-based planning, or even like trying to seek more people or clients that want that ongoing support as well. So I am realizing that, but by the end of this year, I want to. Well, my year one is coming up in May, so I currently have 7 clients. I just signed my most recent one last week, so I have 7 clients. By May, I'm hoping to have at least 10, and then by the end of 2025, I want to have 10 ongoing clients. That's really what I'm aiming for. A big goal of mine is making sure that I'm okay as well, so that my firm could continue to grow. Just because like I said, it's become who I am, and taking a step back to make sure that my health is okay. I'm prioritizing myself, my family, to be able to continue this in the long run. I love to sprint when it comes to things like this, and I gotta remember to like take a step back, and it's a marathon. It's really for the long run, hopefully.
It really is. I mean, the first 2.5 years of telehelping, I averaged somewhere between 5 to 15 clients, 20 clients, and then 10 clients. It just go ups and downs. Some people were like my tries and trues. They were on since the very beginning, and I had them forever. And then people would just come and go, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it took us years to realize what was like our perfect client, right? And we CFAs are our largest makeup of clients, and we realized that we had to align our values with our niche's values, and that took a while to learn because at first it was like anyone who wants to hire a remote person from Mexico, I will work with you, was kind of the mentality, right? And then it
Yeah.
was like not all those clients are the clients I want, right? And some of them don't treat their staff well. Some of them are want to be really cheap, right? And they're looking for a cheap product, and you're like, oh, maybe I can do it cheap for now and then charge them more later, and then that doesn't work out. And then eventually we're like, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. We're looking for people who want to bring on people and keep those people and treat those people well, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was a slow build, but eventually, we started jamming and compounding. And once you find clients that you align with well and that you have a small attrition, they just, you go from getting, 5 new clients a month, and maybe you lose 1 client a month, and they just compound little by little by little by little. And that's how we ended up where we are at today. It kept in mind the same thing you is sometimes you're sprinting, but at the end of the day, like those are very short sprints because you're in this for the long haul.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And fortunately enough, I've been in a situation where I think 100% of my clients are the ideal client I want to work with, and
That's
I'm working
great.
with amazing people. I've turned down prospects where like either I just had a gut feeling where I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is gonna like be the right fit, or just off the bat like they're not the right fit. So I've been fortunate enough to come across the right people.
That's good. That's good. Well, as we gear towards the back end of the hill, as I say it, we're coming on the other side of things. Talk to us about who your ideal client would be. We have a very wide viewer base of entrepreneurs, CFAs, lawyers, everybody. Chat with us. Like, if you're saying like, is that like this is who I work with, this is kind of like my approach, and this is how you contact me. Talk to us about that for those people who listen.
Yeah. So when I say first generational wealth builder is like you're typically the first in your family to like graduate college, first to be navigating the amount of income that you're earning. So you're a lot of the first, right? It doesn't matter the ethnicity. A lot of people think that I only work with people of color. If you're like a true first generation wealth builder or even second generation wealth builder, like that's who I really love to work with. Just because like I know the way you think, I know the way you're seeing, the financial system. I know like a lot of the complexities that you're navigating. So that's a lot of the people I'm working with. I really enjoy working with people who are passion driven. So whether through their career or through making, an impact in the world, that's who I really like working with. So I go by the saying of like, I lead with intention and purpose. Everything else falls into place if that's what your intention really is. So that's who the people I really like working with. I work with a lot of small business owners as well. And again, back to the passion driven individuals. So like people that are working in nonprofit realms, doctors, nurses, people that are really looking to give back to the world through their profession or, different ways.
No, that's great. That's great. And if you're looking, and I think that you may be in a great position to, we spoke in the beginning about giving advice, right? And I always look for every individual I speak with, to wonder like, what's that advice they give? I find that yours may be more suited towards the type of client you're looking for. And so for those who may find themselves watching this, what is that advice that you give them? Maybe someone who's going to be your client, maybe someone's not going to be your client, but you're going to impart something upon them. What is that general thing that you usually give people?
Yeah, I think from life in general, if I'm speaking to myself at the age of like 18 or 19, is like lead life with passion and intention, a passion and an intention that it's greater than yourself, for the greater good of the world. And everything else falls into place, right? Like do good by other people, help other people. And like I said, the salary, everything else falls into place when you're trying to do good by the world.
All right, well said. I myself at one point in time had an epiphany where I was sitting there. I'm historically a very bad tipper. And it's not that I'm a bad tipper on purpose. I'm a bad tipper because I grew up in the service industry. Like I know what I expect. I own restaurants. I really know what I expect, right? And now I know what I expect from my restaurant. And then, so when I go out, I used to always be like, subpar, right? I'm like, oh, exceptional. And then I realized one day, I'm like, I was going to bump up my entire spectrum, what I would consider a low tip and then what I consider a high tip. I just moved it all to the right because I was like, I have more to give than most. And I was like, I will tip more now than I would normally do. Right. And it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I don't know why I do this. I'm like, let me change this. And that's the one thing is just, I saw that as an opportunity to put good back into the world, to try to pay forward to my own karma. When having the opportunity to reward someone for doing a good job. Right. And so I took that as well. Uziel, it's been great speaking with you, and I appreciate you sharing your journey and who you are. One thing that we focus on here as entrepreneurs is the spectrum of where everyone is. Just yesterday, I was talking to a gentleman who just quit his job, just starting out, right? And he's like, I'm in this, I got a family, got kids, and let's see how this works. And I've spoken with people who have 50 plus years of experience. So
Nice.
I appreciate you jumping on and talking with me today. For those out here who want to get in contact with Uziel, please, message him directly. You'll have all the contact information on the banners that we provide on the show. You can also reach out to us at info@telehelping.com, and we'll be able to connect you as well. My team will ensure that takes place. But Uziel, I thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Be well.
This video was brought to you by our official sponsor, Telehelping. Need support for your business? Telehelping connects you with top-tier remote staff to help you streamline operations and fuel growth. Go to telehelping.com and get started today.